This is more than a story. It's revenge, perfected.
The photo shouldn't have been there. I stared at Rachel's face, smiling up from Wyatt's wallet. The same damn picture I'd given her on our wedding day 3 years ago. The edges were worn smooth from fingers that weren't mine. My hand started shaking as I held it under the pale moonlight filtering through the Serbian pine trees. "Cal, you copy?" Wyatt's voice crackled through my earpiece, 10 meters ahead on patrol. I shoved the wallet back into his drop pack, my mind racing. How long had he been carrying my wife's photo? How long had she been letting him? "Copy," I managed, shouldering my rifle. Wyatt had been off all week, distracted, making rookie mistakes that could get us killed. Now I knew why. The bastard was thinking about my wife while we hunted arms dealers in the Balkan wilderness. I caught up to him at the ridge overlooking the village. His face was pale, sweaty despite the October chill. "You good?" I asked, studying his profile. "Yeah, just tired." He wouldn't meet my eyes. Long deployment, right. Long enough to steal another man's family. The ambush came at dawn. Muzzle flashes erupted from the tree line as we approached the contact point. Wyatt went down first, crying out as bullets chewed up the dirt around him. I dove behind a fallen log, adrenaline flooding my system. Cal, I'm hit!" I could see him 30 feet away, clutching his shoulder, blood seeping between his fingers. The smart play was to provide covering fire and pull him to safety. The right play. Instead, I watched him bleed. The guerrillas were closing in, shouting in Serbian. Wyatt's eyes found mine across the killing field, pleading. He tried to crawl toward my position, leaving a red trail in the dirt. "Help me," he mouthed. I turned and ran. Behind me, gunfire erupted. Wyatt screamed once, then went silent. I kept running through the forest, branches tearing at my face, until I reached the extraction point 2 clicks south. The helicopter pilot looked confused when I climbed in alone. "Where's Briggs?" "Didn't make it," I said, strapping in. "We got ambushed." Truth was, I didn't know if Wyatt was dead or alive. Didn't much care either way. 3 days later, the local contact found me at the base in Sarajevo. Dmitri was a wiry Serbian with gold teeth and nervous eyes. He chain-smoked while he talked. "Your partner," he said in broken English. "The tall one with yellow hair." "What about him?" "He make deal. Trade weapon coordinates for American dollars." "Many dollars?" Dmitri held up a thick envelope. "They take him alive." My blood went cold. "He's alive?" "Maybe, maybe not. But he give them locations of your weapon cache before ambush. He betrayer." I stared at the envelope full of cash. Wyatt hadn't just stolen my wife. He'd sold out our mission, got our whole unit marked for death. And now he might still be breathing while better men were dead. The flight home was 17 hours of pure torture. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Rachel's photo in that wallet. Every time I opened them, I imagined Wyatt laughing about how easy it had been to take everything from me. The plane touched down in Denver on a gray Thursday morning. October rain streaked the windows as we taxied to the gate. I shouldered my duffel bag and walked into the terminal, looking for my family. Rachel was there, holding a welcome home sign. But her smile looked painted on, her eyes cold as winter. Jessie stood beside her, my 15-year-old daughter, arms crossed and face turned away. "Welcome home, soldier," Rachel said, kissing my cheek like a stranger. Jessie didn't even look at me. The house felt different. Smaller somehow, like it had been shrinking while I was gone. Rachel moved through the kitchen with mechanical precision, making coffee she didn't drink, arranging flowers that were already dead. "How was the mission?" she asked without turning around. "Classified?" "Right, of course." Her voice carried an edge I'd never heard before. "Well, we're glad you made it back in one piece." "We, not I, we." Jessie sat at the kitchen table, earbuds in, completely ignoring my presence. She'd grown taller while I was away, more angular, more like her mother. When I tried to ruffle her hair, she flinched away. "Hey, kiddo." "Miss your old man?" She pulled out one earbud. "Not really." Rachel shot her a warning look, but it was half-hearted, like she agreed but couldn't say it out loud. I unpacked in the bedroom while Rachel showered. Everything was exactly where I'd left it, but something felt wrong. The sheets smelled different. Not quite Rachel's usual lavender detergent. Something heavier, masculine. In the closet, I found a men's cologne I'd never seen before. Expensive stuff. I opened it and inhaled. The scent was familiar, but I couldn't place it. Then I remembered. Wyatt's aftershave. He'd worn it every day on deployment, even in the field. Said it reminded him of home. My hands started shaking again. That night, Rachel lay on her side of the bed like a corpse. When I reached for her, she mumbled something about being tired and rolled away. I stared at the ceiling for hours, listening to her breathe, wondering if she was really asleep or just pretending. The next morning, she was gone before I woke up. Work, according to the note on the kitchen counter. Jesse had already left for school. I sat alone in the empty house, drinking stale coffee and trying to figure out when everything had gone to hell. I spent the day walking through rooms that used to be mine, looking for signs of invasion. In the bathroom, I found a second toothbrush hidden behind the medicine cabinet. In the living room, the DVD collection had movies I'd never bought, action films, the kind Wyatt always raved about. By evening, I was wound tight as a spring. When Rachel came home, I was waiting in the kitchen with a beer and a list of questions. "We need to talk." She set down her purse and sighed. "About what?" "About where you've been. About what's been happening while I was gone." "Nothing's been happening, Cal. I work, Jesse goes to school, we survive. That's it." "Survive what?" She looked at me like I was stupid. "You being gone. You leaving us here to play soldier while we figure out how to live without you. I was serving my country. You were serving yourself." Her voice turned cold. "Don't pretend this was about patriotism. You love that job more than you ever loved us." The accusation hit like a punch to the gut. "That's not true." "Isn't it? When's the last time you took Jesse to a school event? When's the last time we had dinner together as a family? When's the last time you asked what I wanted instead of just assuming I'd wait here like a good little army wife?" I opened my mouth to argue, but the words wouldn't come. Because deep down, I knew she was right. I'd chosen the mission over them, time and again, but that didn't excuse what she'd done. "I found something," I said quietly. "Found what?" I watched her face carefully. "Evidence that someone else has been in this house." "In our bedroom." Something flickered in her eyes. Fear? Guilt? "You're being paranoid." "Am I? Because I'm pretty good at reading people, Rachel. It's what kept me alive overseas. And right now, you're lying to me." She turned away, busying herself with meaningless tasks. "You just got home. You're stressed, suspicious. Maybe you should talk to someone." "Maybe I should talk to Wyatt." She froze. Her shoulders went rigid, and for a long moment, the only sound was the kitchen clock ticking. "Wyatt's dead," she said finally. "You told me he was killed in action." "That's what I thought. Turns out he might have survived." Now she turned to face me, and I saw something new in her expression. Not just guilt, but panic. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying maybe you know more about Wyatt than you're letting on." She laughed, but it sounded forced. "You're crazy. You've been in combat too long. You're seeing enemies where there aren't any." "Then prove it." "Show me your phone." "My phone?" "Your call history, your text messages. Show me there's nothing to hide." For a moment, I thought she might actually do it. Then her face hardened. "I don't have to prove anything to you. This is my house too. And if you don't trust me, maybe you shouldn't have come home." She walked out of the kitchen, leaving me alone with my suspicions and the growing certainty that everything I'd fought for was already lost. 3 weeks passed in frozen silence. Rachel left early, came home late, and spoke to me only when necessary. Jesse treated me like a stranger who'd invaded her house. I spent my days researching, digging through financial records and phone bills, looking for proof of what I already knew. The letter was hidden in Rachel's jewelry box, underneath a tangle of necklaces I'd bought her for birthdays and anniversaries. Official letterhead from Gene Tech Laboratories. My hands trembled as I unfolded it. Paternity test results: client, Rachel Marie Dawson. Subject, Jessica Lynn Dawson. Alleged father, Calvin James Dawson. Probability of paternity: 0.00%. The date was from 2 years ago. 2 years she'd known Jesse wasn't mine. 2 years she'd let me believe I was raising my own daughter while she ducked my best friend behind my back. I sat on the bed we used to share, staring at the paper until the words blurred. Everything made sense now. Jesse's distance, her refusal to hug me, to call me dad anymore, Rachel's coldness, her guilt disguised as anger. They'd both been waiting for me to die overseas so they could finally be free. Footsteps on the stairs. I folded the letter and shoved it in my pocket just as Jessie appeared in the doorway. She saw me sitting on her mother's bed and frowned. "What are you doing in here? Looking for something?" "Like what?" I studied her face, searching for any resemblance to myself. Her dark hair, her brown eyes, the stubborn set of her jaw. None of it came from me. How had I been so blind? "The truth," I said. Something shifted in her expression, a hardness that reminded me of Rachel. "About what?" "About who your real father is." She went very still. No surprise, no confusion. Just a cold, calculating stare that belonged on someone much older. "You know," I said. It wasn't a question. "I've always known." Her voice was steady, matter of fact. "Mom told me when I was 12, and you said nothing." What was I supposed to say? Thanks for being the backup dad? The cruelty in her tone took my breath away. This was a child I'd raised, loved, protected. A child I'd killed for overseas, convinced I was fighting to keep her safe. "I loved you," I said quietly. "No, you didn't. You loved the idea of me, the perfect little army brat who'd worship her hero daddy." She stepped into the room, arms crossed. "But I'm not yours, and I never was. We were just pretending. All of us. Your mother?" "My mother did what she had to do. You were never here anyway. Always off playing soldier, leaving us to figure out how to survive without you." Her eyes glittered with malice. "We were hoping you'd die out there." The words hit like a physical blow. I felt something break inside my chest, something that couldn't be repaired. "We hoped you'd die," she continued, "so we could finally stop pretending to be your family." I stood slowly, my legs unsteady. "And Wyatt? What about him? Is he your real father?" She tilted her head, considering. "Maybe. Mom never said for sure, but he's a better man than you ever were." "Better how? By selling out his country? By betraying his brothers? By actually caring about us instead of caring about his stupid military career?" I wanted to tell her the truth about Wyatt, about the treason, the blood money, the way he'd left good soldiers to die. But looking at her face, I realized it wouldn't matter. She'd already chosen her side. "You're right," I said finally. "I should have died over there." "Yeah," she said, without a trace of sympathy. "You should have." She walked away, leaving me alone with the ruins of everything I'd thought was real. I waited until they were both gone before I started the real investigation. Rachel to work, Jessie to school. The house felt like a crime scene, full of evidence I'd been too stupid to see. Her laptop was password protected, but I'd learned a few tricks from military intelligence. Her browser history told the story in painful detail. Encrypted email services, offshore banking sites, flight tracking for flights to Idaho, where Wyatt had apparently been dead for the past 6 months. The financial records were harder to crack, but I had time and motivation. Joint accounts had been drained slowly, systematically. Small withdrawals that wouldn't trigger alerts. Money funneled into accounts I'd never heard of, under names I didn't recognize. Shell companies, fake identities. My wife had been planning this for years. In her dresser drawer, underneath winter sweaters, I found a second phone, a burner with a single contact, S. Davis. Sam Davis. Wyatt's middle name was Samuel. The text messages went back 8 months. Love notes, plans, coordinates for dead drops where they exchanged cash and information, and photos I wished I could unsee. My wife naked in poses I'd never seen, Wyatt's hands on her body. Messages about how much they missed each other, how soon they could be together permanently. "Just a little longer," Rachel had texted 3 weeks ago. "He's getting suspicious, but I can handle him." "What if he finds out?" came the reply. "Then we accelerate the timeline. You have the contacts in Mexico. Everything's ready. New identities, offshore accounts. We just need him gone." I screenshot everything before putting the phone back exactly where I'd found it. Then I sat in my kitchen, staring at proof that the two people I'd trusted most in the world had been planning my murder. The private investigator's office was in a strip mall between a pizza place and a dry cleaner. Jake Morrison was a former cop who'd been drummed out for asking too many questions about department corruption, exactly the kind of man I needed. "Military case?" he asked, reviewing the photos I'd printed. "Personal. My wife's been having an affair with my former partner. I need everything you can find on both of them. Surveillance, financial records, background checks, everything. And Jake, time is a factor. I think they're planning to run soon. Or worse." I met his eyes. "Yeah, Or worse. He quoted me a price that would drain my savings account. I paid it without hesitation. One more thing, I said. My partner, Wyatt Briggs, is supposed to be dead. Killed in action 6 months ago, but I have reason to believe he's alive and using the identity Sam Davis, probably in Idaho. Fake death? Military cover-up. He was involved in selling weapons to enemy forces. I think someone helped him disappear instead of facing a court-martial. Jake whistled low. That's heavy stuff. Federal charges if you're right. I know. Can you handle it? I can handle it. But if this goes where I think it's going, you need to be careful. People kill to protect secrets like this. They're already planning to eliminate me. He nodded grimly. Then we better work fast. That night, Rachel came home with takeout Chinese food and a fake smile. We ate in silence while Jessie texted on her phone, probably updating her real father on our family dinner. How was work? I asked Rachel. Fine. Busy. She wouldn't meet my eyes. How was your day? Productive. I've been thinking about our future. Now she looked at me, trying to read my expression. Our future. Whether we have one. Whether it's worth fighting for. Something flickered across her face. Relief? Anticipation? I think, she said carefully, that maybe we've both changed too much. Maybe we want different things now. Maybe we do. It doesn't have to be ugly, Cal. We could just part ways amicably. With half of everything? That's fair, isn't it? I mean, I've been taking care of things while you were deployed. The house, Jessie, all the responsibilities. Right. All those responsibilities. She nodded, warming to the subject. I've proven I can handle things on my own. Maybe it's time to make it official. And Jessie? She's old enough to choose where she wants to live. I looked at my daughter, my former daughter, still buried in her phone. I'm sure she's already made that choice. We all have. After dinner, I helped Rachel clean up while Jessie disappeared upstairs. As we loaded the dishwasher, I played my part. There's something I need to tell you, I said quietly. About Wyatt. She went very still. What about him? He might not be dead after all. Military intelligence thinks he was captured, not killed. They're investigating whether he's being held somewhere. Her hand tightened on the plate she was washing. Held where? They won't tell me details, classified, but they're hopeful they might get him back alive. That's wonderful news. Her voice sounded strange, strangled. Yeah, I thought you'd be happy. I know you cared about him too. Of course, he was your friend, our friend. I'm supposed to meet with his handler tomorrow. Some guy from the agency who's coordinating the search, going to review everything I remember about the day he disappeared. She was washing the same plate over and over, her movements mechanical. His handler? Yeah. Apparently, Wyatt was working on some special assignment, above my clearance level. I dried my hands and kissed her cheek. I'll probably be out most of the day. Debriefings, paperwork, you know how it is. Right. Of course. I went upstairs to bed, leaving her standing in the kitchen, still holding that damn plate. An hour later, I heard her cell phone ringing. The conversation was muffled, urgent. I couldn't make out words, but the tone was pure panic. Phase 1 was complete. Now Rachel would warn Wyatt that their secret was in danger, and desperate people make mistakes. I was counting on it. The meeting with Jake was set for dawn at a diner off I-25. I arrived first, ordered coffee, and watched the parking lot for anyone who might be watching me. Paranoia was a survival skill now. Jake slid into the booth across from me, carrying a manila folder thick with papers. Your wife's been busy, he said without preamble. Shell companies in 3 states, offshore accounts in the Caymans, and a paper trail that leads straight to your boy Wyatt. He spread photos across the table. Surveillance shots of Rachel entering a storage unit, bank records showing regular deposits from an account registered to Davis Holdings. Flight manifests with Rachel's name on trips to Boise, Idaho. She's been flying out there twice a month for 8 months, Jake said. Always returns the same day, always pays cash. And Wyatt? Sam Davis, age 34, owns a tactical training facility outside Coeur d'Alene. Clean background, perfect credit, military experience, listed as classified government contractor. Jake pulled out another photo. Took this yesterday with a telephoto lens. It was Wyatt. Older, scarred, but definitely alive. He was standing outside a compound of military-style buildings, talking to a group of men in tactical gear. What kind of training facility? Officially, corporate security, private military contractors, law enforcement. Unofficially? Jake shrugged. The kind of place where you learn to eliminate people and blow things up. Cash only, no questions asked. How's he funding it? Good question. Property records show he paid $3.2 million cash for the land 2 years ago. That's a lot of money for a dead soldier. I studied the photos. Wyatt looked comfortable, confident, the kind of man who'd found his place in the world. While I'd been grieving his death, he'd been building a new life with my family's money. There's more, Jake said. I ran facial recognition on his clients. Half of them have ties to domestic militia groups. Anti-government types, survivalists, the kind of people who might pay good money for military-grade training. Training for what? Revolution, maybe, or just really sophisticated crime. Either way, your boy's not just alive. He's thriving. Jake pulled out a final photo. Rachel and Wyatt together, arms around each other, standing in front of what looked like a luxury cabin. Taken 3 days ago. They look pretty cozy for a dead man and a grieving widow. My hands clenched into fists. Any idea what they're planning? Based on the financial records, they're getting ready to disappear. Large cash withdrawals, travel documents, the whole 9 yards. I'd say you've got maybe a week before they vanish forever. With my daughter? Probably. Though, from what I observed, she's not exactly fighting to stay with Daddy. The truth of it hit like a knife between the ribs. Jessie wasn't a victim in this. She was a willing participant. What do you need from me? Jake asked. Everything you can get on that training facility. Security measures, personnel, daily routines. I want to know when Wyatt takes a piss. Planning something? I'm planning to get my life back. Jake closed the folder. Cal, I've got to ask. What's the end game here? You expose them, they go to prison. But then what? You think that fixes your marriage? Get your daughter back? No. But it makes them pay. And if they decide to eliminate the evidence before you can expose them, I met his eyes, then they better be faster than me. That afternoon, I drove to Fort Carson to meet with my old squad leader, Nate Collins. He was between deployments, stuck pushing papers and training rookies. When I called, he'd agreed to meet for beers at a bar near the base. Jesus, Cal, you look like hell, he said when I walked in. Feel worse. We found a corner booth away from the other soldiers. I waited until he'd had a few drinks before I started talking. I need to ask you about Wyatt. Crap, man. I'm sorry. I know you two were tight. Losing him like that. That's the thing, Nate. I don't think we lost him. I told him about the investigation, the evidence, the photos, everything except the part about Rachel and Jessie. That wound was too raw to share. Nate listened without interruption, his expression growing darker with each detail. You're telling me Wyatt faked his death? That he's running some kind of mercenary operation? That's exactly what I'm telling you. But the body, what body? You read the report? Killed in action, body unrecoverable due to enemy fire. Convenient, right? Nate was quiet for a long moment, processing. You said there was a handler involved? Someone with enough juice to make a dead soldier disappear. Someone who could create a new identity, clean records, the whole package. That's not military, that's CIA. I know. Cal, if you're right about this, we're talking about treason. Selling weapons to enemy forces, faking death to avoid court-martial, setting up a training camp for domestic terrorists. This goes way beyond one asshole stealing your wife. Your wife. He didn't know how literally true that was. I need names, I said. Who would have the authority to make this happen? Nate shook his head. I can't help you with that. Even if I could, you're talking about taking on people who make problems disappear permanently. They already want me dead, Nate. The only question is whether I go quietly or take them with me. He studied my face in the dim bar light. You're serious about this? Dead serious? Then you need more than names, you need insurance. He pulled out his phone. I'm going to give you a number. Guy I served with in Afghanistan. Goes by Corey now, works private sector. If anyone can help you document this crap and keep you alive long enough to expose it, it's him. He wrote a number on a napkin. But Cal, once you make this call, there's no going back. You'll be at war with people who have unlimited resources and zero conscience. I've been at war since the moment I came home. Fair enough. He finished his beer. For what it's worth, if Wyatt really did what you think he did, He deserves whatever's coming to him. They all do. That night, I called the number Nate had given me. A gravelly voice answered on the third ring. Yeah? Nate Collins gave me your number. Said you might be able to help with a problem. What kind of problem? The kind that involves dead soldiers who aren't dead and government handlers who make inconvenient people disappear. A long pause. You got a secure line? I can get one. Do that. Then call me back. And friend, if this is some kind of setup, you won't get a second chance to make that mistake. The line went dead. I sat in my empty house, listening to Rachel shower upstairs, and wondered if I was about to make the biggest mistake of my life, or if it was already too late to matter. Corey turned out to be a ghost. No last name, no fixed address, just a voice on encrypted calls and a series of dead drops around Denver. But his information was gold. Your boy Wyatt's been busy, he said during our third phone call. Training camp's legit, but it's also a front. Half his clients are militia groups. The other half are foreign nationals paying premium rates for combat training. Foreign nationals from where? Places that don't like America very much. Word is, he's been selling more than just training. Weapons, intelligence, tactical plans for hitting government targets. My blood ran cold. Domestic terrorism? Or foreign-sponsored attacks made to look domestic? Either way, your dead friend is in deep with some very dangerous people. And his handler? Guy named Lang, CIA, but not officially. Black Ops, off-the-books stuff. Word is he's been running assets in Eastern Europe for 20 years. Lots of people have died to protect his operations. Lang. The name felt familiar, but I couldn't place it. Here's the thing, Corey continued. Lang's operation is falling apart. Too many questions from the wrong people. He needs to clean house, eliminate loose ends. Starting with me? You're the only one who knows Wyatt was supposed to die in Serbia. If you disappear, the official story stands. Wyatt stays dead, Lang keeps his secrets, and everyone wins, except me. Yeah, except you. Jake called that evening while Rachel was at her book club, which I now knew was code for ducking my dead best friend. Got those surveillance details you wanted, he said. Your boy keeps a tight schedule. Training runs from 8 to 6 Monday through Friday. Weekends he's usually alone at the compound except for a skeleton security crew. House skeleton? 2 guys, maybe 3. Ex-military, but they're there for show more than protection. Place is isolated, surrounded by forest. Nearest neighbor is 12 miles away. Security systems? Basic stuff, cameras, motion sensors, but nothing military grade. He's not expecting trouble from anyone with real skills. When's Rachel's next trip? Flight records show she's booked for this Friday. Returns Sunday night. Perfect. A whole weekend to end this. Jake, I need one more favor. I need you to document everything. Photos, video, audio recordings. When this goes down, I want proof of what really happened. Cal, what exactly are you planning? Justice. That's not an answer. It's the only answer I've got. Friday morning, I watched Rachel pack her overnight bag. Designer clothes, expensive lingerie, the kind of effort she hadn't made for me in years. Business trip? I asked from the doorway. Conference in Denver, boring stuff. She didn't look at me while she lied. When will you be back? Sunday night. Late flight. And Jesse? Staying with my sister, school project or something? More lies. Karen, Rachel's sister, lived in Phoenix and hadn't spoken to us in 2 years. But I played along. Drive safe. She kissed my cheek, the same mechanical gesture she'd been using since I got home. See you Sunday. An hour after she left, I was in my truck heading north toward Idaho. Jake had given me detailed maps of the compound, shift schedules for the security guards, and a complete inventory of Wyatt's daily routine. I also had something else, a digital recorder, a camera with a telephoto lens, and enough evidence to bury them all. The compound was exactly as Jake had described. Military-style buildings surrounded by razor wire with a main house that looked like a fortress. I set up observation post on a ridge overlooking the facility, using skills I'd learned hunting insurgents in Afghanistan. Through the telephoto lens, I could see Rachel's rental car parked outside the main house. Movement in the windows suggested they were home, together, in what should have been our bed. I waited until dark to move closer. The security was laughably bad. 2 guards patrolling on foot, no night vision equipment, radios that weren't encrypted. I bypassed the perimeter sensors and made it to within 50 yards of the main house before I had to stop. Through the living room window, I could see them clearly. Rachel and Wyatt sitting by a fireplace, drinking wine like a normal couple. She was wearing the red dress I'd bought her for our anniversary. He was in civilian clothes, relaxed and confident. They looked happy. I set up the camera and started recording. For the next hour, I documented their reunion. The kissing, the laughing, the easy intimacy of two people who belong together. Everything I'd thought I had with Rachel, she'd been giving to him. Around midnight, they went upstairs. I moved closer to the house, using exterior utility lines to climb to the second floor. The bedroom window was cracked open, and I could hear voices. "How much longer?" Rachel was asking. "Not long now. Lang says the cleanup operation starts next week. And Cal? Taken care of. It'll look like an accident. Grieving soldier too much to drink drives off a mountain road. Very tragic. What about Jessie? She comes with us. New identities, new life. The money we've saved will last for years." I pressed the record button on my phone, capturing every word. "I still can't believe he hasn't figured it out," Rachel said. "He's supposed to be this great soldier, but he can't see what's right in front of him. He's not stupid, just trusting. He believed in us, in the mission, in doing the right thing. Makes him predictable and weak." "Yeah, weak." They were quiet for a moment. Then Rachel spoke again. "Do you ever feel bad about it? About what we're doing to him?" "No. He made his choice when he left us behind to play hero. Everything that happens now is on him." I climbed down from the window, my hands shaking with rage. I had everything I needed. Audio recordings, photos, video evidence of them together. Enough to destroy their lives and expose Wyatt's treasonous operation. But it wasn't enough. They'd destroyed my life, turned my daughter against me, planned my murder. Evidence wouldn't bring back the years I'd lost or the family I'd never really had. I needed something more permanent. In my truck, I called Corey on the encrypted line. "It's done," I said. "I have everything we need to expose Lang and shut down Wyatt's operation." "Good. Send me the files and I'll make sure they reach the right people." "There's one more thing I need." "What?" "Tomorrow night, I want you to create a distraction. Something big enough to draw off the security guards, but small enough to contain—" "Cal, what are you planning?" "To finish what I started in Serbia. That's not justice, man. That's revenge. Sometimes they're the same thing. I spent Saturday preparing like it was a military operation. Equipment check, route planning, contingency scenarios. Everything I'd learned in a decade of combat operations focused on a single objective: ending Wyatt Briggs permanently. The compound was quiet during the day. I watched from my observation post as Wyatt ran his weekend training sessions for a group of militia types. They practiced room clearing, weapons handling, explosive techniques, all the skills needed to wage war against their own government. At 6 p.m., the clients left. By 8, only Wyatt and 2 security guards remained. Rachel's car was still parked outside the main house. I waited until midnight before making my move. Corey's distraction came right on schedule. A series of small explosions in the forest, designed to look like illegal fireworks or maybe poachers. Nothing dangerous, but loud enough to draw attention. Both guards went to investigate, leaving the compound temporarily undefended. I had maybe 20 minutes before they returned. I moved fast, using the darkness and my knowledge of the layout to reach the main house undetected. The front door was locked, but the kitchen window was open. I slipped inside, drawing my sidearm. The house was dark, except for light coming from upstairs. I could hear voices, muffled but urgent. Rachel and Wyatt discussing the explosions, wondering if they were under attack. I climbed the stairs slowly, each step planned to avoid creaking boards. At the top, I could see light under the bedroom door. The voices were clearer now. "Maybe we should leave tonight," Rachel was saying. "If someone knows about this place?" "Relax. It's probably just kids from town. Happens all the time." "But what if it's not? What if Cal figured something out? Cal's an idiot. He's sitting at home feeling sorry for himself while we plan his funeral." I reached the bedroom door and pressed my ear against it. They were both inside, probably getting dressed to investigate the disturbance. I tested the handle. Unlocked. Taking a deep breath, I burst through the door with my weapon raised. "Don't ducking move!" Wyatt was reaching for a pistol on the nightstand. Rachel was half-dressed, frozen in shock. For a moment, nobody breathed. Cal. Wyatt's voice was steady, but I could see fear in his eyes. You shouldn't be here. Really? Where should I be? Dead in a ditch somewhere? Look, we can explain. Explain what? How you sold out your country? How you stole my family? How you planned to murder me? Rachel found her voice. Cal, please. You don't understand. I understand everything. I kept the gun trained on Wyatt while addressing her. I know about the DNA test. I know about the money. I know you've been planning this for years. It's not what you think, she said desperately. It's exactly what I think. You're a lying witch and he's a traitor. The only question is, which one of you dies first? Wyatt slowly raised his hands. Cal, let's talk about this. Man to man, soldier to soldier. We're not soldiers anymore. You made sure of that when you sold weapons to the enemy. You don't know the whole story. I know enough. You took money from arms dealers. You gave them intelligence that got good men killed. Then you faked your death to avoid consequences. It wasn't supposed to happen like that. But it did. And now you're running a training camp for domestic terrorists while ducking my wife and poisoning my daughter against me. Jessie was never your daughter, Rachel said quietly. The words hit like a physical blow, but I didn't lower the weapon. I know, but I loved her anyway. Until you taught her to hate me. We didn't teach her anything, we just told her the truth. The truth? You want to talk about truth? I pulled out my phone and played the recording from the night before. Their voices filled the room, discussing my planned murder with casual indifference. Wyatt's face went pale. Where did you get that? I was outside your window last night, heard everything. The cleanup operation, the staged accident. Your plans to disappear with my money and my family? Cal, listen. No, you listen. I'm done being played. Done being the fool who trusted the wrong people. Done pretending any of this can be fixed. I shifted my aim slightly, pointing the gun directly at Wyatt's chest. You want to know what happened in Serbia? I could have saved you. I was 20 feet away when you got shot. But I chose to let you die because I already knew what you were. You son of a bitch. Yeah, I am. And now you're going to pay for it. Cal, wait. Rachel stepped forward. If you eliminate him, you'll go to prison. Jessie will hate you forever. Is revenge worth destroying your entire life? What life? You already destroyed it. We can work something out. Share custody, split the assets, go our separate ways. Nobody has to die. You're right, nobody has to die. I smiled coldly. But somebody's going to... Wyatt tensed, preparing to make a move for his gun. I saw it coming and adjusted my stance. Don't. What's your plan here, Cal? Kill us both and claim self-defense? My plan is justice. You committed treason. You stole from me. You planned my murder. In some countries, that's a death sentence. This isn't some third world a-hole. This is America. America doesn't protect traitors. I heard footsteps downstairs. The security guards were back. Looks like we're out of time, I said. Wyatt's hand moved toward the nightstand. I squeezed the trigger. The shot was deafeningly loud in the confined space. Wyatt spun and fell, clutching his shoulder. Blood seeped between his fingers as he writhed on the floor. Rachel screamed. Next one goes in your head, I told Wyatt. Where's your computer? Go to hell. I put another round in his leg. He screamed and tried to crawl away. The computer, Wyatt? Where is it? Office, he gasped. Downstairs. Password? Duck you. I aimed at his other leg. Password. Ghost 77. Good, now tell me about Lang. What about him? Where do I find him? You don't. He finds you. Not good enough. I moved the gun to his head. Address. He moves around, safe houses, hotel rooms, never the same place twice. Phone number? I don't call him, he calls me. The footsteps were getting closer. I could hear voices, radio chatter. The guards were searching the house. Cal, Rachel whispered. Let me go. I'll disappear. Never contact Jessie again. You'll never see me again. Tempting, but no. Please. I'm begging you. Like I begged you to be honest? Like I begged you to love me? She started crying. Real tears this time, not the fake ones she'd used to manipulate me. I did love you. Once. But not enough to stay faithful. Not enough to tell me the truth about Jessie. Not enough to keep you from planning my murder. We weren't going to eliminate you. The accident thing was just Wyatt talking. We would have just disappeared. Liar. The guards were on the stairs now. I had maybe 30 seconds before they reached the bedroom. I grabbed Wyatt's laptop from the desk and shoved it in my backpack. Then I zip-tied his hands behind his back while he groaned and bled. "This isn't over," he said weakly. "Yeah, it is." I heard the guards reaching the top of the stairs. Time to go. There was a fire escape outside the bedroom window. I'd spotted it during my reconnaissance. I shot out the window and climbed through, leaving Rachel to explain the blood and her wounded lover to the security team, but not before I left them a parting gift. "Rachel," I called from the window, "check your email in about an hour. I sent you something special." "What?" "Every photo, every recording, every piece of evidence I collected. It's already on its way to the FBI, the CIA, military intelligence, and about a dozen news organizations." Her face went white. "You can't." "I already did. You and Wyatt are about to become very famous. Enjoy prison." I rappelled down the fire escape and disappeared into the forest before the guards could react. Behind me, I could hear Rachel screaming, Wyatt moaning, and sirens in the distance. Phase 1 was complete. Now for the hard part. I drove through the night, putting distance between myself and the compound. By dawn, I was back in Colorado, but I didn't go home. Instead, I checked into a motel outside Denver and spent the day copying Wyatt's hard drive. What I found was worse than I'd imagined. Financial records showing payments from foreign intelligence services, training schedules for domestic terror cells, plans for attacks on government buildings, military bases, critical infrastructure. Wyatt wasn't just a traitor, he was coordinating a nationwide insurgency. And Lang was at the center of it all. The CIA handler wasn't protecting American interests. He was selling them out, using his position to fund and coordinate attacks against his own country. The money trail led through a dozen shell companies to accounts in Russia, China, North Korea. I uploaded everything to multiple cloud servers, then sent copies to every contact I had in military intelligence, federal law enforcement, and investigative journalism. By the time the story broke, it would be impossible to contain. My phone rang as I was finishing the uploads. Rachel's number. "You destroyed us," she said without preamble. "Jesse's been arrested. They think she's part of the conspiracy." "Is she?" "She's 15 years old." "That's not an answer." Silence. Then, she knew about the money, some of it. And the training camp? She thought it was just business, a way to make money. By training terrorists? She's a kid, Cal. She doesn't understand the implications. Maybe she'll learn about implications in juvenile detention. "You bastard. She's your daughter." "No, she's not. You made that very clear. Legally, she's an accessory to treason." "Just like you." "The FBI wants to make a deal," Rachel said desperately. "Full cooperation in exchange for reduced charges. They think I can help them find Lang. Can you?" "Maybe." Wyatt knows how to contact him. Wyatt's not talking to anyone right now. Last I heard, he was in surgery getting bullets removed. "Cal, please, help us. For Jesse's sake, if not mine." I thought about it for exactly 3 seconds. "No, she's just a child. She's a child who told me she hoped I'd die overseas. A child who helped you steal my money and plan my murder. A child who chose to side with traitors over the man who raised her. If you don't help us, she could go to prison for years." "Good. Maybe she'll have time to think about her choices." I hung up and threw the phone in the trash. Then I drove home to the empty house that had never really been mine. The FBI was waiting in my driveway. Agent Sarah Kim was young, professional, and clearly out of her depth. She had questions about my relationship with Wyatt, my knowledge of his activities, my whereabouts the previous weekend. I answered everything, honestly. Yes, I'd suspected Wyatt was alive. Yes, I'd investigated on my own. Yes, I'd broken into the compound and shot him in self-defense when he reached for a weapon. "Why didn't you come to us first?" Agent Kim asked. "Because I didn't know who to trust. Wyatt had help faking his death." Someone with serious clearance and government connections. For all I knew, the FBI was compromised too. "What made you suspect he was alive?" I told her about the photo in his wallet, the ambush in Serbia, the local contact who'd revealed Wyatt's betrayal. I didn't mention the personal details about Rachel and Jesse. That was between us. "You understand you're looking at serious charges?" Kim said. "Breaking and entering, assault with a deadly weapon, possibly attempted murder. I understand I'm a patriot who exposed a domestic terror network while your agency was sitting around with its thumb up its ass." She didn't like that, but she couldn't argue with the results. The evidence I'd provided was already yielding arrests across 3 states. Militia leaders, weapons dealers, foreign operatives, all connected to Wyatt's network. What about Lang? I asked. What about him? When are you going to arrest him? Kim's expression was carefully neutral. That's classified. He's the one running the whole operation. Without Lang, there would be no network. Mr. Dawson, I appreciate your cooperation, but this is now a federal investigation. We'll handle it from here. Like you handled it before, by letting a traitor fake his death and set up a terrorist training camp. That's enough. She left me with a warning not to leave town and a business card in case I remembered anything else. I watched her drive away, knowing she'd do exactly nothing about Lang. The system was protecting its own, just like always. That night, I sat in my empty house and planned Phase 2. The story broke 3 days later. Every major news network, newspaper, and website ran the same headline: CIA handler linked to domestic terror network. Photos of Wyatt, Rachel, and Lang dominated the coverage. Financial records showing payments to militia groups. Training videos from the compound showing foreign operatives learning combat techniques. Audio recordings of conversations about planned attacks on American targets. It was everything I'd hoped for and more. Rachel was arrested at Denver International Airport trying to board a flight to Mexico. She had a fake passport and $50,000 in cash. The FBI charged her with money laundering, conspiracy to commit treason, and accessory to terrorism. Wyatt was arrested in his hospital bed. They'd extracted 2 bullets from his shoulder and leg, but he'd survived to face trial. The charges against him filled 3 pages: treason, sedition, conspiracy, weapons trafficking, tax evasion, and about a dozen more. Jessie was released into the custody of her aunt in Phoenix after agreeing to testify against her mother. The juvenile charges were dropped in exchange for her cooperation, and Lang simply disappeared. One day he was at his office in Langley. The next he was gone. No forwarding address, no contact information, no trace of where he might have fled. Rumor was he'd been extracted by the same foreign handlers who'd been paying him. I watched it all unfold from my kitchen table, drinking coffee and reading news articles about the destruction of my family. Strange how clinical it felt when you saw it in print. Just facts and dates and legal charges, with no mention of the personal betrayal that had started it all. My phone rang constantly. Reporters wanting interviews, lawyers offering representation, old army buddies checking to see if I was okay. I ignored them all. The only call I answered was from Jake Morrison. "How you holding up?" he asked. "I'm alive." That's more than they planned for me. Any regrets? I thought about it. No, they made their choices. Now they live with the consequences. What about Jessie? That was the hard question, the one I'd been avoiding. She chose her side. I have to respect that. She's still just a kid, Cal. Kids make mistakes. Some mistakes you don't come back from. Jake was quiet for a moment. So what now? You going to stay in Colorado? I looked around the house that had never really been a home. Rachel's things were gone, seized as evidence. Jessie's room was empty, her posters and books packed away by social services. Nothing left but furniture and memories that hurt to touch. No, nothing left for me here. Where will you go? Don't know yet. Somewhere new, somewhere I can start over without ghosts. That's probably smart. This story's going to follow you for a while. He was right. I'd become a public figure, the wronged soldier who'd exposed a massive conspiracy. Some people called me a hero. Others called me a traitor for turning against his own family. I didn't care about either label. After Jake hung up, I walked through the house one last time. In Jessie's room, I found a photo that social services had missed. The 3 of us at Christmas 2 years ago, all smiles and fake happiness. Rachel and Jessie already planning their escape while I played the fool. I tore the photo in half and threw it away. 6 months later, I was living in a cabin outside Missoula, Montana. Far from Colorado, far from the media attention, far from everything that reminded me of who I used to be. The trial was set to begin in 2 weeks. Rachel's lawyer had been calling, begging me to testify on her behalf. Character witness, they said. Evidence of her remorse, her desire to make amends. I told them to go to hell. Jessie had written me a letter. 3 pages of careful handwriting, explaining how sorry she was, how she'd been confused and manipulated, how she wanted to rebuild our relationship. I threw it away without finishing it. Some bridges, once burned, can never be rebuilt. The morning Rachel was scheduled to be sentenced, I drove down to Denver to watch. Not because I wanted to see her suffer, but because I needed to see the end of the story. The courthouse was packed with reporters, protesters, and curiosity seekers. I found a seat in the back and watched as they brought her in wearing an orange jumpsuit and shackles. She looked older, thinner, defeated. Prison had not been kind to her. When her eyes found mine in the courtroom, I saw something that might have been hope. I looked away. The judge was efficient. 25 years for conspiracy to commit treason, with the possibility of parole in 15. Rachel started crying when the sentence was read. Her lawyer put a hand on her shoulder, but she shrugged it away. As they let her out, she turned and looked at me one more time. "I'm sorry," she mouthed. I said nothing. Outside the courthouse, reporters surrounded me, shoving microphones in my face and shouting questions. "Mister Dawson, how do you feel about your wife's sentence? Are you satisfied with the outcome? Do you plan to visit her in prison? Any comment on Jesse's testimony?" I pushed through them without speaking and walked to my truck. As I was getting in, I felt a hand on my arm. Jessie stood behind me, looking nervous and uncertain. She'd grown taller in the months since I'd seen her, more mature. She was with a woman I didn't recognize, probably her aunt. "Cal," she said quietly, "can we talk?" I looked at her for a long moment. This girl I'd raised, loved, protected. This stranger who'd helped destroy my life. "You happy now?" I asked. She flinched like I'd hit her. "What? You got what you wanted." "I'm out of your life. Your mother's in prison where she belongs. Wyatt's facing execution for treason. You're free to pretend none of us ever existed. That's not... I never wanted this." "Sure you did. You told me yourself. You hoped I'd die overseas so you could finally stop pretending to be my family." Tears started rolling down her cheeks. "I was angry. I said things I didn't mean. You meant every word. And you know what? You were right. We weren't family. We were just three people pretending to be something we weren't. Cal, please. I know I hurt you, but I was just a kid. I didn't understand. You understood enough to help them steal my money. You understood enough to lie to my face for months. You understood enough to choose them over me when it mattered. I made a mistake. No, you made a choice. And choices have consequences." I climbed into my truck and started the engine. Jessie stood in the parking lot watching me through tears, but I didn't look back. Some wounds don't heal. Some betrayals can't be forgiven. Some families are better off apart. I drove out of Denver as the sun was setting, heading back to Montana and the quiet life I'd built from the ashes of everything I'd lost. In my rearview mirror, the city disappeared into darkness. By the time I reached the state line, I'd already forgotten their faces. 3 years later, I got word that Wyatt had been executed by lethal injection. No fanfare, no media coverage. Just a brief mention in the prison newsletter that someone forwarded to my P.O. box. I felt nothing. Rachel was still in federal prison, serving her sentence in administrative segregation for her own protection. Apparently, the other inmates didn't like traitors any more than I did. Jessie had graduated high school and was attending college somewhere in Arizona. She'd sent me an invitation to her graduation, but I'd returned it unopened. As for Lang, he'd never been found. Rumor was he was living somewhere in Eastern Europe under a new identity, still selling American secrets to the highest bidder. But rumors were all they were. I worked as a fishing guide now, taking tourists out on the rivers around Glacier National Park. Simple work with simple people who didn't ask complicated questions about my past. When they did ask, I told them I was retired military. That was usually enough. Sometimes, late at night in my cabin, I thought about the choices that had led me here. The photo in Wyatt's wallet that started it all. The decision to let him die in that Serbian forest. The moment I chose revenge over forgiveness. I wondered if I'd made the right choices. Then I remembered Rachel's cold eyes when she told me they'd hoped I would die overseas. I remembered Jessie's cruel words about being my backup daughter. I remembered Wyatt's casual discussion of my planned murder, and I knew I'd done exactly what needed to be done. Some people called me a hero for exposing the conspiracy. Others called me a monster for destroying my own family. But I knew the truth. I was just a man who'd learned that happiness dies in the trees, And forgiveness is a luxury you can't afford when the people you love are planning your funeral. The cabin was quiet except for the sound of wind through the pines. I poured myself a drink and sat on the porch, watching the stars come out over the mountains. Tomorrow there would be tourists to guide, fish to catch, simple conversations about weather and wildlife. A life built on the ruins of the old one, but honest in its simplicity. I raised my glass to the darkness and spoke the words that had become my prayer. Happiness died in the trees. Then I finished my drink and went inside, leaving the ghosts where they belonged.